Stellar Blade is absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorite games in recent years, and a lot of the reasons why it is because it modernizes trends from the late PS1, PS2, and early PS3 era. A style of game design that was really abandoned for a while, and it doesn't feel like a retro throwback. It feels like a modern continuation of a lot of the ideas we abandoned, both in how it's structured and its design overall, as well as how it's packaged and sold to us as a full video game that feels satisfying to buy and play without ever being interrupted by microtransactions or by anything that makes you feel like it's unfinished. So as I believe I'm known to do, I have a list to tell you why I think Stellar Blade is fantastic and go a little bit deeper into explaining that design of it. By the way, hi, I'm Mugthief, and I think too much about things and then I make videos with the results of that. Hit the like button if you can. The like button lit up when I said that. Let's get into it. So number one is its BIG PS2 Energy. I really think that this is like one of the greatest PS2 games ever made, and I say that in the best way possible. So just in case you know nothing about Stellar Blade, this is a character action game with some Souls-like elements to it, and also a lot of spectacle with some different platforming and a little bit of that Nathan Drake Uncharted climbing to it. Lots of big set pieces, but mainly platforming and action. Essentially, if you're thinking Bayonetta plus Dark Souls plus a little bit of Uncharted, you're on the right track, including perfect parries, perfect dodges, skill trees, and some gear to improve to customize a bit of your playstyle. And I think most people who have played a lot of PS2 games for some projects coming up on the channel, I've been playing a lot of PS2 games. You might be playing through the game and get this sort of nostalgic feeling with some of it, and I know I did. And if you got that, you might have found it difficult to put into words, and I found it very difficult as well, but I'm going to try my best. So what exactly is the PS2 Energy? Well, firstly, it's a core gameplay loop that integrates experimentation and one-offs constantly. A lot of the essence of those 3D action platformers from back in the day is how they would use 2 to 3 core design elements and then jump between them and introduce one-offs or mini-games, just sequences that you wouldn't see repeated again or that you would see very sparingly throughout the game to fill in that constant changing of the loop. I'm going to give you 2 easy examples, Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank. Both of them do this all of the time. You have platforming, you have combat, you have vehicles to some degree in both of those franchises, but you also have a ton of smaller mini-games and one-off things. Jak goes skateboarding, Clank solves puzzles, now it's time to do a race, things that fill out the game even on the critical path to keep the pacing very tight as you are consistently throughout the game jumping, fighting, minigame, driving, jumping, minigame, fighting, jumping. You get the point. And Stellar Blade does exactly the same thing. The core of the game is fighting, but there is plenty of platforming and navigation as well. There are a lot of secondary things that can take up quite a bit of time, and there are big shifts in that core gameplay throughout that keep it fresh as one-offs. It is not afraid to try something different in the middle of the game just once, just to put it in, just to have some fun, just to break up that pacing. And that is a lot, but that PS2 Energy doesn't stop there, because a lot of what I associate with that era of games, things like collectibles that would lead to upgrades or outfits or improvements or secrets and cheats, things like that. And Stellar Blade takes that same philosophy outright and puts it into their game. You can collect all sorts of different outfits and earrings and glasses. You can find all sorts of different collectibles to upgrade your HP, your beta energy, the amount that you can refill your Estus flask. But the game is always incentivizing you to take your time and look around the environment and find optional puzzles that are hidden, be that navigation or combat or little one-off things that will allow you to access these upgrades or these outfits, and they all feel meaningful. A lot of that might remind you of character action games in general, and that's because games like Bayonetta very much carry the legacy of those action games from the PS2 forward, and don't abandon those things even when they come out, you know, Bayonetta 3 on Switch. But Stellar Blade doesn't feel like a retro throwback in that way, and we'll talk about how it modernizes things in just a second. But to finish off with the PS2 energy, it's also willing to have fun. A lot of the times that these one-off things appear, or that these mini-games or expanded systems show up, it feels like the developers did it because they just wanted to, because they felt it was fun to do, even if it took a lot of effort to make something work just for it to be a one-off, and then maybe you can find a mini-game out in the world that utilizes it more. That just feels like them having fun, and there is a connection that at least I make, and I think more people do as well, with the developers when you're playing a game like that, where you just say like, oh, you want me to have fun, and you had fun doing this, and we're on the same page, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate this moment. I mean, there's even something about the structure of the game, the way that you get into a ship and then travel to a location, and that location works as a level, and sometimes that level has different branching paths to go down, but a main critical path, it's all there. Now, the only negative that I can also make a positive out of is the pacing of the game, because it does have a lot of side quests and pseudo open world elements to it, and those can drag that pacing that otherwise is very tight, that jumping loop between different gameplay styles, it can drag it down to a halt, but they're optional. So I still see it as a win, because a lot of people want a lot of content in their games, especially if you like something, you want more of it. So I'd prefer for this to be here, but as it is in the game, I can ignore it and I don't really feel like I'm missing out on too much. I'll come back, I'll do it in New Game Plus, than for it to not be there. Number 2, I put in my notes just no bullshit is the title for this, so let's roll with it. There's no bullshit. There's no microtransactions, there's no season pass, there's no FOMO. It doesn't feel unfinished. It does have all of that meaty content, all of these different outfits and unlockables to get. Like, I know it sounds crazy, and it really makes me reflect on the state of the industry in ways that I don't want to, because I like being positive. Any other game with this amount of outfits for the character would have included 17 different microtransaction packs at launch for you to buy them, or for you to buy recolors of them, which they don't, and there are recolors of outfits in the game. It's such a big, meaty game with all of the things you can engage with and play, the amount of enemies, the amount of cool battles, the amount of collectibles, and how they impact the game. There's so much going on here for them to not care. Like, buy the game, play the game, it's all there, and it's all good. Yes. Number 3, let's talk design. It's very modern in its PS2 approach instead of retro. That has a lot to do with how it implements very modern design elements into its core loop, and that is primarily the Souls-like design, the having a camp that you go back to, that you can upgrade, that when you rest, all of the enemies respawn, you have your Estus flask, and those mechanics that feel very Souls-like are blended into a combat system that half imitates Souls and half imitates a character action game. And this is really one of the pain points of the game, that you might find yourself wanting more of one of those two halves at different points. I know that my biggest complaint with the game is that I never really felt like the parry and the dodge and the attacks were 100% responsive in the same way that a Devil May Cry game might be. And I felt like the design of the enemies and what the game asked, what the game wanted to do and what it wanted me to do with it was more of that nature than of the Souls games. But it's the willingness to take something like a character action game, something more directly on the side of a Devil May Cry or a Bayonetta, and to combine that with those Souls-like elements and the level design that is very modern, but still has the overall structure of that big PS2 energy that makes it feel like a modernization of those design elements instead of a throwback. That willingness to combine elements, to experiment, to try something new, and to go all out in that try that can really end up defining some of the future ideas that will come to be standard in a lot of the video games we play in the future. And that is what makes it feel like it's pushing things forward instead of throwing things back. Number 4, the potential here is immense. And I have to talk about Lies of P here, as well, it's very coincidental that both of these games are South Korean. I promise that is not the reason I'm joining them together. It's because they are both coming from studios that you would never expect to come out with this. Round 8 Games had no track record to make a AAA Souls-like that is, in my opinion, still the best non-From Software made Souls game. Lies of P is incredible. It came out of nowhere. It is also this full-featured game that doesn't rely on microtransactions. It just wants you to play it, and it puts everything that you want out there and leaves you wanting more with just how good it is. And Shift Up, coming from being a mobile game dev, a gacha game developer, to their first AAA outing and making a game this good right off the bat, shows us that there's a lot of talent out there that is willing to take things like money made from other places, in the case of Shift Up, and invest it into these fully featured boxed products of very high quality, or in the case of Round 8, to just take a risk on that model and do it wonderfully. These are studios that are nailing a lot of things on their first try that many other studios never get right after 5 games. That might be because those other studios never got the proper funding or time or whatever to really materialize their visions. But it doesn't matter what reasons allowed them to do it, the fact is that they do it. This new crop of games that is blurring the line between AA and AAA, that I hope, at least in terms of budgets and development cycles, are more sustainable games that also release in a way that is healthy for the consumer. Lies of P was on Game Pass, I mean, honestly. And Stellar Blade, yeah, full price release, but I think that what you're getting in the game for the full price release is excellent. This to me is a positive trend in video games, and something that I want to see happen more often, and that I want people to pick up on. And most importantly, it's something that I'm really excited to see what happens with it in the future. Lies of P is just an incredible game in my opinion, and I can't wait for the sequel, which is teased, which even the concept I'm really excited about. And Stellar Blade has a lot of that same feeling, except it's more original. It tries something more out there compared to Lies of P, but there is so much potential to see not just what this universe does, but what this developer does as well. And it feels great to see new talent come out in the industry that I am so excited for their future projects. In other words, anytime one of these games releases, the AAA industry is healing, just a little bit. For point number 5, it's just like some review stuff. I'm gonna squish some stuff in. To start with though, performance is absolutely fantastic, and it's like a gold standard that I think a lot of games should strive for performance-wise. I recommend, if you're curious about the technical details, that you check out Digital Foundry's tech review on the game, because the 3 modes that it comes with on PS5, being the performance mode, the balanced mode, and the quality mode. Balanced mode is actually a variable refresh rate mode that seems to perform incredibly well. My monitor does not have that, so I played on performance and it was rock solid, and quality mode also seems to be pretty well done in terms of what it's aiming to do with it. Having the 3 modes and having them all work very well, excellent. Again, it's complete rookies showing up veterans, and I want the veterans to learn from them, please. And from there we go on to difficulty. Now, it's really hard to judge exactly how difficulty is going to affect the majority of people. Keep that in mind with my comments for it, that I'm talking from my perspective and I try to give context for that. I see a lot of comments of people saying that they looked at the game and it looked too hard, or that they played the demo and it was too hard for them. And I will say that especially towards the very end of the game, I thought it was very hard on normal mode, and I did not try it on story mode. That is my mistake. I should have, to at least get a better perspective on it. The game does offer you a lot of different tools to circumvent it, and it has very strange difficulty spikes. I think the middle of the game is really hard, and then the very tail end becomes easy and then really hard again. And I've never been good at the more Sekiro Neo style of very parry and strict timing based games in difficulty. I've beaten Sekiro, I've beaten Nioh 2, but that's just not my strength, and I already complained about like some of the timing of things in the game, the reactivity of it. So I think that is an issue for you to be concerned about. But it does offer the story mode, and from what I looked up online, a lot of people say that it makes it considerably easier. I think you can still enjoy the grand variety of different things that the game does and its wonderful structure and design without worrying too much about the difficulty. It can drag if you go for every single side quest, and there are some kind of annoying parts to some platforming sections and some navigation puzzles, but I haven't watched or read any other reviews for the game. I've seen a lot of the bylines, I can't ignore those that just show up, and it seems like a lot of reviewers like it a lot, but have some complaints, and I struggle to find exactly what those complaints might be, except the story. I think the story is interesting, but it does feel sometimes like we have Nier Automata at home, like it's just not that deep, it's not that wowing in its revelations and the message that it wants to communicate, and its characters could be better. Eve doesn't have as much to grab onto compared to other main characters in character action games. It's not the sassy, larger-than-life personality, the cockiness of Dante or Bayonetta. She kind of often feels like Bayonetta on her first ever mission and being very confused about things and just not having like developed a personality yet. And it makes sense in the world of what she is, but it's still detrimental to the moment-to-moment enjoyment of the character, its development, and her interactions with others. The closest thing to a real personality that we get in the game are some of the side characters and Lily, which I do think has potential, but it's just not pushed enough. There are a couple of moments of banter in the game that you're like, yeah, I like this dynamic, this is funny, I like this, and then that doesn't continue. So I could see complaints there, but I still think Eve is a great character in how she fits into the role of what the story is. It's not the best written story, and it's not the best written characters ever, but she at least does have the extreme cool factor of a lot of character action game protagonists, where most of the things she does are just like, damn, that was awesome. That was a cool move. You like controlling her, you like doing your special attacks, your finishers on enemies. It's all very spectacular and feels good to play 99% of the time. So I could see that complaint, but I didn't play this game for the deepest story in the world. It felt very much inspired by big Hollywood blockbusters in the moments of story and the revelations, and that is more than good enough to justify exploring this world, getting a bit of the lore, understanding what's going on, having good context to enjoy it. But otherwise, I don't see the cracks. I just think that this game is like really, really good, and maybe I'm crazy. But I guess I differ from the review consensus out there in that I like it more than other reviewers. But overall, I think that it's just a great game because of that design, because of the world that it builds, because of how you explore it, its pacing, and its combat is satisfying, great enemy diversity, interesting, challenging combat for those that are looking for it, tons of content if you're looking for it, New Game Plus right off the bat. This is not like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. It feels like such a complete package that I thoroughly enjoyed from start to finish, and that I'm even thinking about going back and cleaning up for the platinum. And I could go on about the game forever, but you've already watched plenty of reviews on it. I just wanted to talk about some of the things that I think we're not talking about enough. So, and also, mini point, very brief, the soundtrack in Stellar Blade, the overall vibe, as well as, I mean, the graphics are great, the game looks beautiful, the art direction is something that I strongly enjoy, but the soundtrack especially, I have a background in music for those of you who don't know, and I think that Final Fantasy VII Remake and Stellar Blade are just shining examples of having a brilliant music team making excellent songs for a game that cover a wide range of styles that really define the game and have it stick with you for way longer after you finish the game. I mean, I'm still singing bow wow wow, bow wow wow, do 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 do. Sorry, and I will be using a lot of the background music from Stellar Blade in my videos because it's just, there are so many incredible tracks in this game. Just wanted to shout that out. I've been Mugthief. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more of these types of videos on the latest games, and you also like retrospectives and very in-depth analysis of games, I do all of those things on my channel. So you can go ahead, subscribe, check out the channel, whatever you want to do. I appreciate all of it. Thank you to my wonderful patrons that support me on the patron wall. There's only one tier, it's $1, gets you on the wall, gets you a shout out at the end of the long form videos. And to everybody else, thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And as always, I will see you again very soon.